Thank you and welcome to the show for today. You are watching Perspectives and I am host Alana McLaughlin. This morning on the show I have Dr. Regina Etter and Mr. Jon Wren here to discuss their backgrounds, their educations, the impact that they seek to leave on local Tennessee communities and more. And I want to start this segment off by thanking you guys for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
And let's get right into it. Dr. Etter, I want to start with you. Tell me about baby Regina years. Just set it up for me, where you're from. Tell me about that early childhood.
Well, let me just start with I am a native Nashvilleian. Went to school here in Metro Nashville Public Schools. Started out as a little kindergartner in the Providence community out in Owensville Road, and went to Providence School for kindergarten, and then went to the next year, went to first grade at Haywood Elementary School, which is over a little bit farther. And so during that time was able to learn and grow and just to see friends in kindergarten that looked like me, but only to go to that next year, the friends that didn't look like me. But the learning experience was great. So I started there and then continued and graduated from Antioch High School, which is now Antioch Middle School. But so the whole time I've been there, and then went to Tennessee State University. And so just with a lot of family support, love, and the value of education was just instilled in me.
Yes. And Jon, that same background, that same kind of early baby Jon years.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from South Central Kansas, Wichita, Kansas. And I grew up there. I'm a proud product of public schools. My mother was a public school teacher. My aunts are public school teachers. My grandmothers are public school teachers. So
it was lined out for you.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of doubt about what was going to happen. And so grew up there and attended, actually the first year I went to school as a kindergartner, I was actually bused. And so kind of have some relevant experience to a little bit of what we're going to talk about later. But really grew up in a loving family and had a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to sharing more.
And now, Jon, how did you end up from Kansas? How did you get down to Nashville?
It took me a while to get here, but eventually. So my brother attended Belmont University and never left. And so everyone else in the family just kind of made our way to Nashville. We came here in 2018. My wife came here to start a business, and I came along for the ride and applied for a job to work for Regina. And she lost the bet and had to hire me.
Yeah. And Dr. Etter, that's a perfect segue into tell me about your beginnings with Metro Nashville Public Schools. And that's kind of how we'll wrap this first segment.
Sounds great. 39 years ago, actually this week I received my anniversary email from Metro Nashville Public Schools. I started out as a first grade teacher at Tusculum Elementary, and always had that niche to teach, always in loved designing, creating activities to make the content easy for my students. You know, we do, and we speak to differentiation. You're familiar with that. And so making sure that every student's need was met, making sure that I was able to give them what they needed so I could get what I needed to ensure that they understood the content. So with that, I started there, and I was there for about 10 years, did a lot of professional development for other people, and one lady discovered that I had a gift to do something different, so they invited me to be a part of a special grant by the National Science Foundation with Tennessee State University. And so I stayed there for 6 years teaching science. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. So we were able to travel across the country and work with scientists all over the country. It was just absolutely the best job ever. And Metro said, we need you to come back home. So I came back to Metro and been there ever since, working in different capacities, but mostly in the area of STEAM, you know, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And so working with that, and so then I got with the grants, and so for the last 18 years, 10, 12 years or so, I've been working with grants, and with the Magnet Schools of America grant, and so it's just been wonderful. MSAP grants, Magnet Schools Assistance Program grants, and so we are excited and just doing what we do to make sure that students, all children, have an opportunity for exposure, for, you know, the expectation is there to experience the learning, not just we do it here, but to actually experience it. So that's what I've been doing.
Jon, you have the greatest job in the world. I just have to tell you, man, to be next to somebody like this. Ending our first segment, tell me about your early beginnings in the public school system, working specifically. I know that this was kind of surrounded, you were surrounded by educators in the house, but tell me about your early beginnings personally working in these public schools.
Yeah, absolutely. So right out of college, I taught 1 year of high school, very poorly, but and then kind of transitioned to nonprofit work for quite a while. When we came to Nashville, we're looking for different positions. I applied to join the Magnet School team and began working with Regina, and instantly kind of joined this group of education professionals really kind of on a mission to transform traditional elementary schools into theme-based magnet schools by giving them resources to market, resources to recruit, and resources to make all kinds of interesting community connections. And so we just put our heads down and went to work and really created some incredible programs. And I'm happy to kind of report that in addition to that, we've now added a second cohort and a third cohort of magnet schools. And so we're continuing to kind of grow and build that momentum of designing and developing really dynamic magnet schools.
And in our second segment, we're going to pick back up on really developing those magnet schools. We're going to talk about the impact that you guys have had all the way up to the U.S. Department of Education and ultimately ways that national communities and these metro schools can support the two of you. And I encourage our viewers to tune into the second segment of Perspectives, where Regina, Jon, and I will be discussing innovative school materials, their backgrounds, educations, and more. Welcome to the second segment of the show for today. For viewers just tuning in, I am host Alana McLaughlin, and you are watching Perspectives. This morning on Perspectives, I have Dr. Regina Etter and Mr. Jon Wren here discussing innovative school materials. They're discussing their backgrounds, their educations, the mission that they have, the impact that they seek to leave on these Tennessee communities, and specifically on Metro Nashville Public Schools. In our first segment, we talked about my two guests' backgrounds. We talked about their individual work with Metro Nashville Public Schools, and we're going to pick back up in the second segment. Jon, I'm going to start with you. We're talking about transforming traditional elementary schools and turning them into theme-based magnet schools. And I want to talk about what that looks like, because to an outsider, and I say outsider as we're three people who work for MNPS, but to people watching this who aren't really familiar with the school system, they couldn't really tell you too many differences between a traditional school and a magnet school, especially like a theme-based magnet school. And I want to talk about what that looks like, what a theme-based school looks like, and how you specifically transform these traditional schools into that magnet school.
Yeah. Absolutely. So as a district, Metro Nashville Public Schools is committed across the board to providing students with equal opportunities and with equal access. One of the things that we think that families and students deserve access to is choice. And so we work really specifically to, within our district, through our magnet school grants, create schools that have dynamic and different and interesting themes. International Baccalaureate, Visual and Performing Arts, STEM, STEAM. What we want to do is we want to give students and families choices within the school system so that they know that they have a great zoned school option, but they also have great magnet school options as well.
And Dr. Etter, now I have to ask you, I want to talk about your why behind the work that you do with these magnet schools. And this segues or ties into what Jon said as well, because you guys are working together.
Right.
But I want to talk about the mission that you personally have behind this and how you've been able to kind of execute your mission through your work with these magnet schools.
In working with the magnet schools, it has afforded me an opportunity to learn and to grow, but also to work with a team of individuals who are very professional, who believe in the same mission, that we want to ensure that our students have an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to be a part of a community, to feel valued, to know that what's within them, that they can, if they want to learn about the environment, we have an environmental school that will help them. If they want to learn about engineering, we have a school that will help them to foster that desire and that love that they have for that area. Yeah, come on in. And so what I get to do is to help design those types of learning environments. We were at a school this morning, and one of the teachers was asking about something special, and I said, well, let's try this. She said, that's it. So then with our grant funds, what we get to do is we hire two persons that actually work at the school, a person that works with curriculum like myself, and then we have a person that helps to ensure that the resources are there. So if they need something that will help students to put their hands on it and make it work, they set the purpose. This is the reason why we do what we do. So like with my why do we do the work that we do? Because we believe that through education, we can give our children what they need to be citizens, to be responsible, help them to learn about the world, but only through education can they get an opportunity like this. Only through education can they get to work with teachers who care about what we do and how we impact the lives of not just our students, but their families as well. And I quote Dr. Battle a lot. She said, every student known, and she has a quote that says, know where you are, but don't stay there. So with our children, knowing where they are, we want to move them. We want to move their families, but also it impacts the Nashville community as well.
And I want to talk about just some of the different resources that you have had your hands on in terms of shaping these different communities. I know that you're an author, and I'd like you to tell me a little, I know, but you are awesome. And seriously, these materials in these schools, I want you to tell me about that and tell me about the books, and that'll lead into the board game that I want to hear you and Jon describe. But tell me first about your writing on the school level. I know that you have adult books as well, but I want to talk about on that school level.
On the school level, being part of the transformational work from the federal government, having the funds, we were able to create literature for our students that would help them to not just have a hands-on experience, but be able to read. So, for example, out at Tom Joy Elementary has received a special award. They are a Blue Ribbon School of Excellence Award in school, and so we're excited about that. Their theme is digital literacy and leadership. So, in thinking about our students, what can we do to help our students learn the vocabulary, to be familiar with the words that they needed so they could speak to their theme? So we created a book, a Techie Tiger book, all about their mascot and his little friend, Joy. And so Tom and Joy explore words and vocabulary with the students, and so that way they have posters all around the building. So we do things like that. At Carter Lawrence, it's about Cartesia. Meet Carter Lawrence. Her name is Cartesia, and her dad actually is an engineer, and he teaches her about the engineering design process. So my love for writing actually impacts the classroom and our students, and it's so amazing when I go somewhere and someone say, "Oh, my child read your book. I heard about your book." So being an author and using that gifting to help, that's part of my why, my purpose in life, being able to do that.
And to end this second segment, excuse me, I want to talk about something that's really interesting about your books. You feature multiracial characters.
Yes.
And I want to talk about the importance behind that. I remember in our first interview, the first time I had you here, we talked about just the importance of visibility. Mm-hmm. I was like, boy, if I saw myself in an engineering book, I was like, I'd be an engineer right now. but seriously, there are thousands of children who will go years and years with these classics and these classic children's books that they love, but they'll never see themselves. And we talked about how important that visibility is, but I want to hear from you, from your heart, why that visibility is important to you and why you chose to include multiracial characters in your books.
When we think about our children today, they live in a multiracial society. Their communities, when they go to Walmart and different stores, they see the different languages. So at Alex Green, we decided to have Alex Green be a young lady who was biracial, and also she was bilingual. So we realizing that being bilingual is a superpower now. So with that, with this little girl with her grandmother, she gets to think about all these different persons who were famous first. And we have Hispanic persons in there as well as African American and females, because we don't see a lot of females in these wonderful jobs. So we even have persons in the district who have done great things, the famous first. And so with that, it gives our children an opportunity to identify with someone. They look like me. They look like me. And so that's why it's really near and dear to my heart, so that they can have the identity and to feel valuable, and that as a woman we can achieve.
And in our final segment, Dr. Etter, we're going to pick right back up on the fact that we can achieve. We're going to talk about the achievements that you've had specifically in these metro schools. Jon, we're going to talk about you guys' collaborations throughout these schools, the professional developments that you guys have done. Yeah. I've been lucky enough to sit through them, and honestly, the impact that you all seek to leave on these schools. And I encourage our viewers to tune into the final segment of Perspectives, where Regina, Jon, and I will return to discuss innovative school materials. For today. For viewers just tuning in, I am host Alana McLaughlin, and you are watching Perspectives. This morning on the show, I have Dr. Regina Etter and Mr. Jon Wren here discussing innovative school materials. They're discussing their backgrounds, their educations, the work that they've done through Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools, and more. In our first two segments, we talked about my two guests' backgrounds, their education, their early beginnings in the public school system, and ultimately in this final segment, we're going to talk about a new board game that these two individuals have created and founded, that these two individuals have previewed at local metro schools, and we're going to talk about the importance behind this game. And so, Jon, I want you to take me away. Brown colors the Board of Education. I want you to tell me about the idea of creating a board game that centers on something so serious. I want you to just take me through the inception of this thing.
Yeah. So one of the things when we explain people what it is that we do, one of the things we want to talk about is the work of magnets and the work of designing schools and school choice people have an easier time understanding the what it is that we do. But one of the things that we found is that there was a disconnect in understanding the why behind what we do. And so we talk about how it's easier to get buy-in, but before you get buy-in, you need to get what we call the why-in and understand why it is what we do. And ultimately, the work that we do stems from a court case in the Supreme Court in the 1950s, Brown versus the Board of Education. This year, 2024, is the 70th anniversary of the Supreme Court ruling. And one of the things that Regina and some other colleagues on our team at the time really felt like they needed to put together was, instead of putting together like another lecture or another PowerPoint presentation, that there needed to be something that was innovative and new and dynamic and that actually kind of helped people experience part of what we did. And so they came up with what we call Brown Colors the Board of Education, where it is a board game that you play as a playable character in the civil rights movement, and you work together with the other people that are playing the game to try and advance towards full integration of schools. But you have to be careful, you got to work together, so there's a lot of strategy involved. And I'll let Regina talk about it in a second, but one of the things that I'll tell you has been so powerful about it is it's been a way to help people understand that why, but also to see that they still to this day have a role to play in this work in providing kids and families with equal access to opportunities.
Dr. Etter?
Absolutely. And just to piggyback on what Jon is saying, in the creation of the game, helping me to better understand my why, to empower me, to give me what I needed to go out and to not only tell, but to sell to everybody that there is purpose behind education. There is a reason that we need to ensure that our children have the best of the best. That starts with the best teachers, but knowing their why. So within the game we play, we have positive reforms and we have unintended consequences that the persons who are playing the game get to experience. And there's content there that allows them to read about it and study about it. And then you'll roll your dice and you may have to go back 20 spaces. So doing that, they get to think, well, I was getting ahead, but what stopped me? But they work collaboratively so to ensure that they go for the win, So they use their superpower, their special abilities, as we call them, their special abilities to help support. So there's times and opportunities for them to collaborate, to critically think, to communicate, and to help create a way and a path. So Jon and I, we have traveled and met with persons from all over the country with magnet schools of America. We've played it there. We've played it at policy. We've played it with project directors. We've played it with people from the White House. Yeah, the Black Alliance from the White House, and we've had opportunities just in many, many different places to share the why, to help people to have what they need to move forward. And so we get an opportunity to do some great things, meet some fabulous people. And so it's just been one of those resources that's been created to help not just Nashville, but also to help the people, help Nashville, Metro Nashville Public Schools to be on the map. Where people in the magnet school world, they're like, oh, they're from Metro Nashville. Yeah, we know Jon and Regina. So it's helped us to sell what we do here in such a positive way to help our students here in Nashville and the teachers to show that come experience Nashville with us.
And you know, Dr. Etter, it's crazy hearing you explain this because I had the opportunity to play the game. This was about a year ago. You guys are still kind of, I guess, in the trial stage, but I had the opportunity to play, and I played at the high school that I work at, and we only had maybe 2 groups actually reach integration. And God, the entire room, at least 100 of us, were sitting there stumped like, oh my goodness. And I want to talk about some of the specifics of the game. I want to talk about some of those positive reforms and some of those unintended consequences. And I want you to just really describe the game because it's so hard for me to tell anyone who has not sat down and played. It's hard to describe how something like the end of Jim Crow moves you forward and then something like the assassination of Dr. King would move you backward. I want to talk about just some of the characteristics involved in the game.
And I can tell you're a history buff. To pull all of that from the game for a year ago, yes, yeah, you're exactly right. And I know exactly how you feel. Well, with the positive reforms, we started looking at our jobs. Magnet schools were designed and came about because of the work of that ruling. So therefore, that's a positive reform. And then when we look at the unintended consequences, there was African Americans, they lost their jobs. They were unable to get jobs teaching white children. So therefore, that was an unintended consequence. So you move up and you move back. But also, it puts the person playing the game in a place to think that we're not finished. We still have a lot of work to do. So that's why being on here today to be able to share our story, and that the work that we do across the country is not just for Nashville, but it's for all Americans, it's for every student and for every child that will be born in the future. So it's a generational thing for me. And I have two young grandchildren who are 3 and 6, and then I have one that's 16. So therefore, with that span, trying to make a difference for them, so they'll know that I left them a legacy, something to be proud of as far as education, and not just for them, but for students everywhere.
And Jon, you have a unique perspective with this whole thing. I know that you mentioned in our previous segment that you were bused. I want to talk about your experience with the game. I want to talk about what you've learned and kind of the impact that it's had on you.
Well, and one of the things that we factored when we were putting this together was when most people hear about civil rights in schools and integration, they typically think of busing. And for many districts all around the country, that was kind of their answer, was to bus students. And people had different experiences with that, and people have all kinds of different opinions of that. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was not necessarily deny that, but to help our people see that there's a much bigger, fuller picture of what school integration really looks like and what it should look like. And what we in Metro really want school choice to look like is through parent and family choice. And so when we put it together, what we wanted people to see was there are historical events that were incredibly significant that moved the work forward. There were also, we actually originally used to call them negative consequences. But as we played it and as we did more research and study, what we found was that it wasn't so much that people were making decisions to stop it or to change it or to go against it, but people were making decisions and choices thinking that it would lead to one thing, when in reality there were other consequences. And so one of the things that we want to help people understand is whether you're working in public education, whether you're working as just as a parent, whether you're working in finance, no matter what you're doing, when children are involved, you have this sense that the work that you're doing is important, is sacred, that it matters, and so you want to work collaboratively with your child's teacher, with your neighborhood association, with your church or your synagogue, that working collaboratively with other people can actually help advance the mission much more than kind of waiting for the next historical event or kind of the next person to come in and save it, that we can all work together to advance work for children.
And guys, I just want to thank you in these last few minutes of this segment. I want to thank you all for the work that you do, for the impact you've had on all schools, but specifically on me. I got to witness you guys, seriously, just sitting in the crowd, and I got to watch you all in your glory. And seriously, it captivated me, and it is a real honor to be able to share these stories and to be able to understand more of what you guys do and why. In this last minute of this segment, how can people could connect with you guys? How can people support you? Kind of plug yourselves in about this last minute of the segment.
Well, we both are at Metro National Public Schools, and so that work every time. So just contact us that way. We'd love to come out to other organizations and play the game, and to help to educate them about the real work that is behind what we do and what's best for children.
And guys, with that being said, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing these stories, and to our viewers, thank you for just allowing me the space to share the stories that shape our awesome community. Good morning.